Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host. And Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Wellness Wednesday, which is an opportunity for you, me, and my guests to chat about something interesting and intriguing. And tonight we have some questions that I want everybody to answer. And that is, who are you? And where do you come from? Who are you and where do you come from? My very special guest is Dr. Shelley Viola Murphy, who, before we started this broadcast, I realized we have known each other for way over more than 2 decades. Because prior to her becoming this master genealogist, she was here in Tallahassee as a housing guru, a housing chick. And so I am super excited and delighted to have her with me tonight. But before I bring Dr. Shelley on, I need to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? We are live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn, and your comments and your questions are welcome. And I want to learn all about who you are and where do you come from. I want to know. So let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. I see Brother Quasi on from Atlanta. Thank you for being here. Please bring the questions, Brother Quasi, tonight. I know you're going to have some. All right. So I know there'll be folks that are joining us, but I'm just going to share just a smidge, just a little bit of Dr. Shelley Viola Murphy's bio. She is an avid genealogist for more than 30 plus years, born and raised in Michigan, now living in Central Virginia. She is also known as the Family Tree Girl. She conducts genealogy workshops at local, state, and national conferences, and she is known for her inspiring and interactive "So What?" with genealogy research, along with interesting problem-solving methodology lectures such as the use of timelines. She serves on several boards, including the boards of the Library of Virginia and the Albemarle, Charlottesville, and Fluvanna Historical Societies. So again, many, many accolades. I'm not going to get into any more of it. She, in fact, didn't even want me to share any of it, but I had to because she's the bomb.com. And I'm so glad to be reconnected with her. So y'all help me welcome Dr. Shelley Viola Murphy.
It's been a long, long time. I'm glad to be here with you, Nicole.
It has been a long, long time. And man, you left here in 2003. So we talking 22 years since I have seen you. For real, for real.
Yes. I actually came to Florida in 1990.
Wow.
And I left in 2003.
Wow.
So I knew you during that time.
You did know me during that time. Absolutely. All right. So I see folks are tuning in. I'm going to get to y'all in just a minute, but Shelley, you got to tell the folks, who is Shelley Viola Murphy? Not what you do, but who are you in your own words?
I am the daughter of Calvin and Verna. Maiden name from my mother is Worden, and Murphy. I am sister to 4 brothers and mother to 2 adult children. Jaylon lives in Japan, and Janine is still there in Tallahassee. That is who I am. And I am auntie to a whole bunch of first cousins, children, and brothers, and all of them. And that's who I am.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
That's it.
Love it. Yes. So thank you for sharing that. So we have several folks on. Renee Yarborough. She said,
Renata.
Renata. Okay, thank you. Hello from Newport News. Love you,
Yeah.
Dr. Shelley Murphy. Love it. All right. Quasi say he's from Africa. All right. Love it, Quasi. Jen, thank you for being here. The favorite daughter. Love it. Love it. Thank you for being here, Jen Carter. And Paulette from Delaware, Ohio. Thank you so much for being here. So, y'all, please like, please share, please tag a friend and let them know they need to be part of this conversation because it's going to be a great one. So, tell me a little bit, just briefly, kind of how you got on this genealogy journey, especially after working in housing for so many years.
Well, there's a connection, but
Mhm.
actually, I started off helping my mother.
Okay.
I was married at the time, and we were over living, stationed over in Hawaii. But
Mhm.
she had started in the 70s. And of course, the internet wasn't popping like it is now and everything. And she was writing letters to request information.
Okay.
So she was trying to collect information because she heard stories from her grandmother Clara. And
Mhm.
so she's trying to get more information. And when she was sharing that with me, like I said, in the late 70s, she had said that her grandma told her that her father was a slave.
Mm.
I was like, what? Wait, who? We got slaves in the wait, what? Going through all of that. And that piqued the interest was hearing those stories.
Mm.
So I started helping her, just because I had worked in offices and, could do some little bit of research, was going to college in and out, this, that, and the other.
Mhm.
And I'm going to tell you a little thing about my mother.
Mhm.
She is still with us. She
Oh,
is 95.
wow.
And she is still telling some of those stories she heard. But
Wow.
I'm going to say something. My dad was a realtor.
Mm.
And so he had an office.
Mhm.
And she used to write these letters, but she would write 2 letters.
Hmm.
And I asked my dad a couple years before he passed, why did you not ever tell mom about carbon copy paper?
Mm.
She always wrote 2 letters.
Okay.
She still has most of those letters. So
Wow.
if she requested a birth certificate or a marriage or a death certificate, she would make it so she would have a copy. And
Mm.
he had an office and never, she wasn't exposed to that because she never worked in an office, so she didn't know nothing about it. And
Gotcha.
so I was like, why did you not tell her to write copies? But again, the interest came from her always telling something that her grandmother told her. And her thing about her grandmother was always about the past. That
Mhm.
was it. She
Got
always told stories about the past.
okay. So I think I mean I know we're talking who are you and where do you come from? I think the main thing I want to us to kind of get across is like where do people start with with finding out
Mhm.
who they are from a family standpoint.
Mhm.
Um, you know, where should they start?
Well, the first thing that I would tell people to do is write down what you know.
Okay.
Do you know where your parents were born? Do
Mhm.
you know where they got married at? Do you know your grandparents? You
Mhm.
know, you know your aunties, your uncles, and your cousins. So
Mhm.
you write down pretty much what you know. And
Okay.
that should start the journey because from there, you could have questions because
Mm.
maybe you don't know where the grandparents are at because they just always been around. Maybe they weren't from, say, Tallahassee.
Right.
And so that's how you start. You start with what you know, and
Okay.
then you're going to build your questions of what you're trying to find out. A lot of people set goals and,
Mm.
and say they want to find out if their people were free or enslaved. And I'm saying, as far as African Americans.
Mhm.
And because genealogy will take you both places, wherever you need to go, it's there. You
Okay.
just got to have the questions and set your goal. and understand what resources are out there. So that's the biggest thing. And the other thing, after you figure out what you know, is
Mm-hmm.
to find out, especially if you're researching locally, find out what your community has to offer. What's
Okay.
at the courthouse? What's at the archives?
Mm-hmm.
You've got 2 universities down there where
Mm-hmm.
you're at, and there's records that are there at the university.
Okay.
And again, finding out what the public library has. Is
Mm-hmm.
there any genealogy groups that are there?
Mm-hmm.
Or museums, and go from there, because your Florida State Archives is not too far from y'all,
No,
right there.
right
And
there.
that's another place. So find out what resources are there,
Mm.
find out who else is doing it in the area. And that's where you can group up, team up, get a buddy, and start researching.
Okay. So we got quite a few folks that have joined us. Mr. Marcus Boston, who is in Tampa, he said, I wish I knew my family's history.
Mm.
Well, start with what you know.
Let you know and write it down.
Mm-hmm. So, yes, courthouse archives, yes, you can request. There are public records requests that you can make, right?
Well, you can also just go online and find out what's there, because you want to figure out what time frame these ancestors were alive at.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can go in and start looking for records that can connect. And there's so many resources that are online that are free that people can tap into. And you got online databases. But I would probably soak up what you can get at the local level where your people are at first, and then get online, because online will get you kind of bogged down a bit, but it's a convenience,
Right.
and things like that. Just like Tallahassee is within the county of Leon. So you want to know what's in Leon County as well as the city of Tallahassee, if it connects.
Right. All right. My sister Shayla is on down in Miami. Thank you for being here. Tracy Gole is here. Thank you, Tracy, and Miss Alfreda Mitchell as well. Appreciate you all for tuning in. Letitia, happy Wednesday. Thanks for saying start with what you know. We know very little about our family history. So that could be tough. That could be tough. So, maybe if your parents aren't around or your grandparents aren't around, maybe folks that may have known them. That might be another good place to start.
The neighborhood, the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. So again, having those dialogue with family members or family friends, that's a good place to start.
Where did your parents work? If
Where
your parents aren't with you, where did they work? What type of work did they do?
Yeah.
Who were their friends?
Right. No.
So there's a lot of information you can get just by asking questions.
Indeed. All right. Sonia B just joined us, who's here in Tallahassee. Thank you for being here. So, how important, from your perspective, as a genealogy professional, how important do you think it is to know where you come from, who your people are?
Well, as an African-American woman, I want to know, because I know I would have had free people, and I also had people that were enslaved. I really can't say Murphy is my last name, because I don't know if it's coming from that African-American side. That's the name, the government name, as some people call it,
Right.
is Shelley Viola Murphy. But I think it's important for people to understand that how can you keep going forward when you know you got questions about the past? And I could sit here and think about memories of my grandmother, and thinking about, did I ever ask her any questions? Did I ask her about my grandfather? Did I ask her about her mother? And yeah, we had those little conversations, but it was tidbits. And I sit back now and I think I should have did more.
Right.
And actually I'm past that 30 years, because I started in them late 70s. So I think I done crossed that 40 years line But I would tell you, Nicole, if one thing, when you finding out where you come from and where the people came from, it's really amazing. And I like it because it's a reconnection. I work with a lot of descendants that, had enslaved folks in their ancestry. There's nothing better than seeing that connection of somebody they didn't even know about, and to be able to find them or to share a record with them and show them, hey, they were here at this place. This is what they've done. What else, and combine that with the oral history that came through the generations. And now it's time for them to take it to the next generation. That to me is the most critical, is making that connections to those that came, before, and be able to pass their story down. Because a lot of times, and especially during this time in our country, it's almost like an eraser's trying to happen, or we're getting back put, and I always say 1859, on the brink of the Civil War. Listen. And that history, you can see the same things happening.
Right.
Almost the same, from looking at records and reading and understanding what was going on. It's not just about the war. It's also people's attitudes, and how they live.
So the thought that comes to mind is that saying that if you don't know your history, or if you don't know history, you're bound to repeat it, right?
And we are repeating it. We are repeating it. And I'll say it, we are repeating that history right now. And it's interesting because I just posted this on Facebook. I had watched an old segment on Finding Your Roots with Dr. Henry Louis Gates. And it was the Mario Lopez episode. And he was explaining to Mario what had happened to a great-grandfather or a grandfather, which Mario didn't know. But there was a thing called Operation Wetback in I think it was 54, 55. 1.3 million people were snatched and exported out.
Oh, wow.
Does that not ring a bell to what's happening right now?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it was like, I didn't know that. Well, I was only 2 years old in 54. Right. But again, I never learned that in history. So after I watched that, then, I had to start reading. And it was like, oh my God, the repeat.
Yeah.
And Dr. Gates' response, and people can pull it up probably on YouTube, but his response, yeah, man, they were just picking people up off the street and shipping them back. And I thought, this is sounding too familiar.
My Lord. Yes, it is.
Yes. And again, never even heard it. Didn't even know about it.
Wow. Yes. Yeah. Insane change, Jen, just as you said, insane.
Yes. Unbelievable. But we're repeating some of that history, but it's almost like, what are we supposed to do? How do, do we do what they did back there? Right. We've got more access to things now than they even dreamed of, even just in the 50s or the 60s, or even going back in the 1800s. They would have never dreamed what we have access to at our fingertips now.
Right. So Ms. Brittany just joined us. Thank you for being here, Brittany. She's here in Tallahassee. So let me ask this. Now, you talked about the importance, again, because we don't want to repeat history, especially history that is not that is counterproductive, or that is going to attack ourselves, our family, our friends, our loved ones, right?
Yeah.
And so again, we've already kind of talked about where do we start, how do we start, but sometimes, again, it can be challenging, right? What if you were adopted? What if you were in foster care and never really were able to reconnect with your birth parents? What would the recommendation be there?
Well, first, let me roll it back a little bit for those that are just thinking about getting started. We have certain records that are there that are going to be your go-to.
Okay.
And one would be vital statistics, birth, death, marriage.
Okay.
That's like the first 3 you're going to go look for people that aren't still with you. After you've been talking with your family, your elders, your cousins, aunties, and everybody. But then you also want to look at what they call the federal census, population census. They started 1790, and every 10 years, you will have a new schedule that comes out.
Okay.
And that will list on a census where people are at, their name, their age, their gender, but it will also list where some census will say, where were you born at? So if you're going back in the time, you're going to hit that every 10 years.
Gotcha.
And so right now you can access the federal population census up till 1950. So you can at least go there and find people in the 1950 census, grandparents, parents, whoever it could be. And so I will show up in the next one, in 1960. But also find out if the state that you're researching has a state census, which would be in between that 10-year mark.
Okay.
And so that's another tip to share. But I also want to back up. When someone passes away, you get that death certificate. And one of the things you got to think about, where they died might not have been where they lived. So I don't want people to go off on the trail. Oh, they live so-and-so. The record is going to be wherever they died. And again, you want to follow up to make sure if that's also where they lived, and pay attention on who's given the information that's on the record. And if there is any missing information, say the person that's deceased, the informant of the record doesn't list the parents of that deceased person. So then you got to sit back and say, okay, who would know that information? Is there another document where I can find that information? And so it's the theory of every record creates a record. So if I get a death certificate, I want to be able to support that it's a valid record, because not everything is going to be on a document, and not everything is correct that's on a document. And for us as researchers or family, we are at the mercy of who took that information in.
Gotcha.
So people could sit there and take the census and look at me and say, oh, you're white or you're Spanish. And they're going to go to you and say, no, you're black or you're mulatto. You know what I'm saying? So during these 1800s, we're really at the mercy of who's taking it. Did they have attitude? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So my sister said, yep, I heard about that. There was a movie with Jennifer Lopez about that, if I'm not mistaken.
Ooh.
So I think
I have to think about that. Yeah. Thank you,
Maria.
Jayla.
Yeah, for sure.
It was a shock for me. And I had to look it up.
For sure. Yes. Let's see. Miss Jeanette is on in Miami Gardens. Thank you for being here. She said, maternal line from sharecroppers in South Carolina. History very blurred.
Well, let me say something to Jeanette.
Okay.
It could be blurred, but you got to dig. You're going to have to find out those resources. I do a lot of work in South Carolina around the Charleston area.
Okay.
And there is, I'm going to say this, there is a national Afro-American Historical Genealogical Society. It is the only one in the country, and they've been around since 1977. And they have chapters, pretty much throughout the United States. I think there's 35 chapters right now. Okay. South Carolina has a chapter that opened up last year. And they pretty much do the low country is what they focus on. So hopefully, and they can email me and I can put them in contact with someone in South Carolina or ask me, and I'll be happy to direct them where some records could be. Nice. Because not only do you look at census, you're going to have to go back to those birth, death, and marriage, because this is how you could probably connect to another generation. Because if it lists a parent or a sibling, could be an informant on a birth or marriage or, a death record or something like that. So I hope that helps. And then find out if your state has a state census also, which would be in between that 10-year period.
Nice.
And did they own any land?
Did they own any land? Were they landowners?
There was a Homestead Act of 1862. So you need to find out the states that was involved.
Okay.
And from me being born in Michigan, once I realized that I was on homestead property, and the second great grandparents had made their homestead application in 1863.
Wow.
Never knew the value of that. And that homestead application, just for folks, women could own property.
Really?
African Americans could own property.
Huh.
Native Americans could have property. And a lot of that land was Native American land that the federal government was basically given away. And that's the Homestead Act of 1862. And I believe they just cut it off in the 70s. And they could homestead 160 acres. There were requirements that they had to do. So that's another place to look to see was land in the family. But that's also what you would get from your grandmother or from your parents too. My granddaddy owned this land, or they did this, or they did that. And then you can just start asking questions from there.
All right. Dr. Gian Jones just joined us. She said, helpful information. Thank you for being here, Gian. So, so many questions. All right. So I want to get our viewers involved. So let me ask you all, how many of you know where maybe your grandparents, great grandparents came from? How many? Well, maybe the better question is, how many generations can you go back in your family history? How many generations can you go back in your family history? Let us know in the comments if you don't mind sharing. How many generations can you go back in your family history?
Be anxious to see what Jen Carter says.
All right. Look, I'm sure she knows.
They know. And actually, she does some research as well. And so, yeah, I'll just see what if she puts something in there.
She get it from her mama. She can't help it.
They have heard it all their lives.
I'm sure they have.
Yes, all their lives.
So I will answer first. I believe we on my dad's side go back to like our fifth great grandmother, if I'm not mistaken, which was like in the late 1800s. And I can't think of her name right now.
Might be a little bit earlier than the late.
You think it might be a little bit earlier than the late?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my fifth great grandfather was born in 1739.
Oh, maybe it was.
That's what I'm saying. So you're going, if you made it to the fifth, you're probably back before 1800. Probably.
Maybe fourth. I might have to look at those pictures, but I have a cousin. We have a cousin named Cheryl who has done all of the research. I mean, she has this chart, a timeline chart of all of so her grandparents, which are my great grandparents, because that's kind of where we start from in terms of our family reunions that we have. But then she went on up to, I think, like I said, either our third or fourth great grandmother, who was in the Virginia area. So it's very fascinating to see all of that.
When I moved here, Nicole, I had no idea I had any connections. And I'm a believer that the ancestors guide people where they need to be. I moved here and had no connection. I moved up here. Two of my brothers moved my mother to Blacksburg.
Wow.
I kind of didn't settle for Blacksburg, but I knew about UVA and basketball and Ralph Sampson.
Okay.
So I went to another college town, leaving Tallahassee, and got my brother said, let's go to Charlottesville. We're 2 hours away down where my mom was at in Blacksburg. Let's go to Charlottesville. Girl rode through here. Next thing I know, my other brother was taking his daughter to Gainesville because she was going to school there.
Mhm.
I said, I'll pay for the moving truck.
Okay.
Go grab my stuff from my house
Right.
in Tallahassee. I didn't go back.
Gotcha.
I was on leave and put in leave and resigned.
Okay.
I'm
So,
in love with all the history.
yeah. So we're about halfway through our conversation. So for those of you who are just tuning in, I am on with Dr. Shelley Viola Murphy. We are talking, who are you? Where do you come from? Dr. Shelley is a professional genealogist. We've been talking about actually, where do you start if you don't know your family history? Write down what you know, research whatever your resources are in the community, whatever the community has to offer. That could be vital statistics, birth and death records, also checking into the federal census, checking out the Homestead Act. Did your family own land? So these are all some context clues to help you find out where do you come from. And
Military.
military.
Military in there. Put
Mm,
that on the list.
okay.
And for folks that want to know if anybody served during the Civil War,
Mhm.
there are records out there.
Okay. All
And
right.
if folks were at the Civil War era time frame, think about it. They had parents and grandparents. You can get back possibly to the Revolutionary War
Wow.
because African Americans were here,
Mm-hmm.
definitely here.
Okay. So,
So believe that talk on the 1619. They know the 20 and odd that rolled in here on the boat down in Virginia and Hampton, you know, and if y'all read the whole 1619 project and everything, they know the names,
wow.
and descendants know who their ancestors were. And you're talking about where did they come from? Angola. We know
Mhm.
exactly where they came from. And
Wow.
then bring in the DNA and connect it all up. There's a lot of folks that have been able to track back to the 20 and odd. And actually, there was 32. But they talk about, because the gentleman made the comment, oh, there was about 20 of them. And
Hmm.
so that's where that 20 and odd came. The
Gotcha.
city of Hampton, and Renata's here as well. The city of Hampton celebrates Landing Day, usually around August 25th
Oh,
every year, because
mhm.
that's like when that boat came in.
Wow.
And they are there on the shores of where that boat came in. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's amazing.
That
It
is,
event, talks, festival, food, all kind of stuff. And you can see highlights of that online, you know, on Facebook and stuff. So, yeah, don't think we weren't here, weren't involved. And
right.
I have to say, this country was built by the hands of the people that came here.
Mm. All right.
Yeah.
Very good. So Gian said 3 for her maternal line, 3 generations. Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
Marcus, I only know about my grandmothers, nothing else. Okay.
Well, Marcus, we can have that. You got to know your people.
Yeah, we gotta figure it out. And Marcus is an author. He has about 17, 18 books under his belt. So
Awesome.
yes. So we gotta find out so that
I
you can
got a book coming out next year, September. Yes.
congratulations.
Yes.
Right.
Working on it now.
Nice. Renata, some lines go back to the 1400s, but those are Euro lines. African
Mhm.
ancestors go back to the 1700s. 6 great
Great
grand.
grand.
Wow. Wow.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I'm curious, Renata, did you do all of that research yourself?
She's
Okay.
one of my genealogy buddies. Absolutely.
Okay. Wonderful.
She's
Wonderful.
also a presenter and teacher, just like I am.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
Known her for years now.
Nice.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And let me say one fact,
Uh-huh.
and I'm hopefully this is hope for people, especially if they think there's ancestors that were enslaved.
Mhm.
Renata tracked one of her ancestors who was sold either 3 or 4 different times and
Oh,
was able to track him through the sales on
wow.
one of her ancestors. She can put which grandfather it was, but it was her ancestor Calvin Yarborough, And it's fascinating to hear the stories of him being bought and sold. And again, tracking down I believe it was 3 or 4 times and stuff.
Wow.
So you can look her up in YouTube and all kind of stuff. And she's got a blog. Oh, it was her great grandfather.
Okay, yeah, but she said this, and I want to I put this up to encourage Marcus and those of you who don't know anything beyond your grandmothers. Renata didn't know anything beyond her 2 grandmothers when she started. Nothing.
I didn't either.
That is amazing. So you can find them. You can. She said 4 owners. Wow, that's amazing.
And that's documents and reading, analyzing, making connections. That's a lot of research.
Absolutely.
The presentation is fabulous. I do want to come back to the census right quick because folks will find a couple little gaps.
Okay.
And when they're researching, and I'm saying African American.
Yeah. Wasn't there a fire or something?
I'm sorry?
Wasn't there a fire or something with the census?
Well, that's 1890. I'll get to that one, but let me go back a little further.
Okay.
And the reason I'm saying this is because I said the federal census is every 10 years. When you get to 1850 and 1860, there are slave schedules, and they are specific, and it's a federal document. And so you're not going to get names. You're going to get gender, age, and color, and who owned them or who told the information. And so that's 1850 and 1860. Then the 1890 census, yes, there was water damage, a fire, a lot of that is gone. But the information can still be retrieved using different techniques in the research and things like that. So in other words, you know where your folks are at in 1880 and maybe 1900. So now you want to check, was anybody born, died, getting married, whatever happened during this 20 years to see if they're in that same location. And then you can actually download the instructions to any of the federal population census. And what that does is tell you the questions that are asked. And if you can answer those questions, then you're not missing anything. You will know that information. So that is a strategy to get through that 20-year gap. So let me go back to 1860.
Okay.
Well, first, 1870 federal population census. That is the first federal population census where people of color had a first name. They're listed first and last name. Civil War ends in 1865. My favorite collection is the Freedmen's Bureau. It started basically at the end of the Civil War, and they put up these field offices pretty much throughout the South for people to go get assistance. Could be education, could be rations as in food. It could be transportation. Maybe I go into the field office and I say, you know, my husband and my sons were sold to Mississippi. They will contact the field office in the Mississippi area and so forth. So that is my favorite collection. It's very dynamic because I could possibly see a marriage record. I can see a former slave owner. I can also find out children. They had their own little court. People could file complaints. So that is definitely a place to check and find out if your people show up in any of those records. There's 2 pretty much main typical databases online. Ancestry.com, which you pay for, and then FamilySearch.org, which is free. That is the Latter-day Saints, the Mormons out of Utah.
Okay, you said Ancestry, and what was the second one?
FamilySearch.org.
FamilySearch.org. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's opportunities to help you that are out there. And again, find a genealogy buddy. There's in Tallahassee, if I remember right, there's a Black genealogy group right there. Go in there and start asking questions because they definitely will answer.
Indeed.
If
Indeed.
they know, or they will direct you to where you go. So you're not ever really alone,
Right.
and things like that. So I want to make sure they got those records that are out there that people can go back and start building a timeline, because that's what I teach. Build a timeline, start from your grandmother or great grand, whoever you're looking for, and track everywhere you find them. Put the date, put what information it is. Make sure you put the link in or cite the record where you saw the information.
Right.
And then questions.
Okay.
Something doesn't add up. Why don't it? Who is it? What else do you need to do?
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Donda joined us. Thank you for being here, Donda. Good to see you. Chris is on. Thank you for being here, Chris. He said I was able to get my grandparents' parents' names when I was in elementary school, and both sets were alive. My oldest grandfather was born around 1900, which takes me into the late 1800s. I believe we were still in Georgia at that time. Thank you for sharing, Chris. That's great. That's great. That's great. That's great. So
Awesome.
you got some clues, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Facebook, there's a lot of folks that have location groups.
Okay.
It could be Leon County, Florida genealogy, or it could be free or enslaved people from Leon County. And I'm just using that as a reference. But if the place you are researching, you can't find a Facebook page, that's the time for you to start one. And you start with your questions and with your family names that you're hunting for. Like someone talked about South Carolina. Well, if you don't find, because there's a lot of South Carolina folks there, and there's a museum down there too. So I hope people can get there to see the International African American Museum in Charleston. And that OGS conference is going to be there in next week, matter of fact.
Okay.
But if the location that you're searching for isn't there, then you make that page and let it be that it's Leon County, Florida genealogy. And then you start posting who you're looking for and information. People will come. They automatically. And again, those ancestors are driving a lot of this. That's why it's so important for you to find out where you come from and who you are. Is to be able to connect.
Yes. All right. Marcus just said, I just remembered I have my grandmother's obituary. Maybe there's valuable information on it.
That's a gold mine if it's filled out, because it'll say who they left behind, but also who they were connected to.
Yes.
And location. Yes.
Another great
go.
Another great clue. Yes. All right. Quasi said, usually in rural areas in the South, you can go to the county courthouse and get records dating to the late 1800s. Name may be maybe spelled exactly as today. My family dates back to that time. However,
spelling doesn't count, Nicole. You gotta figure it. That sometimes you gotta figure out that's your people, because you see everybody in there, but something don't look right, and it's just a spelling. But if everybody's in there, it's probably your people.
So you know what's so fascinating about that? I wasn't even gonna mention this. I thought about it, but since we talked about spelling, the genealogy bug bit me probably, I don't even know how long ago, probably when my son graduated from high school. So that's been about 15 years ago, right? So I had a lot more time on my hand. So I would go down to the Florida archives, and at the time, you could access ancestry.com for free on their computers down there, right?
But it's limited, but you can.
Well, I start looking up my people on my dad's side, and I found my great grandfather's draft card, I think it was. And he had spelled his name is Hicks. Hicks is the last name, is the family name. He spelled it Hix.
And not HICKS?
Yes.
Spelling doesn't count.
Yes.
It does not count.
So when you say spelling doesn't count, absolutely. But I felt like, I'm looking at something that he actually signed here,
Yeah.
and that was very powerful to experience that.
And also for African Americans, and I'm saying this as another tip,
Mm-hmm.
in this country, everything you want to know about an African American, you're going to have to research the white people that are around your people.
Mm. Okay.
Think about who made the laws, who's holding the paper, and who's got the pen.
Mm-hmm.
All of those records were not because of anything we did, but were the reaction from the records.
Right.
And so if you believe that your folks, and don't believe that all enslaved people took on the slaveholder's name, that is not true.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Family Search on their website said about 15% that they could determine, and I don't know how they did that or whatever, but about 15%
Mm-hmm.
might have taken on the slaveholder's name, but that is a common myth that's out there. And it's another myth that you can't find Black folks prior to that 1870 census, which I already told you about the Freedmen's Bureau, which is 3.4 million records. So hopefully you can find your people.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
Yes.
Yes. So if you run across folks that get stuck, and you mentioned this, I want to definitely reiterate this point. If you run across folks that get stuck, right, and feel like they're running up against a brick wall, what would your recommendation be?
Well, first I would look back at what you have
Mm-hmm.
and look at it with the question in your mind that if I'm missing something or there's a gap and I'm stuck, what else could be out there that possibly could give me more information?
Mm-hmm.
And that could be death of a child, a marriage, buying or selling property, maybe a relocation or a migration or something,
Mm-hmm.
and finding out what could happen and what else could produce a public record.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a court case, it could be something, a probate filing or something like that. But you think about who or what else could have that information.
Yeah.
And one of the things before we go, you mentioned adoption earlier, and I'll comment on that in a minute when we finish this.
Okay.
But I don't want you to leave without it because you mentioned it early in the beginning. And so when I have brick walls, which everybody has them, that's what we call them in genealogy, you're really getting stuck when you got a brick wall.
Right.
But there are different strategies that people can use. Okay. Number one, that timeline is very effective tool to help you see what gaps you have. If you put it in chronological order, it's a great tool. Make sure you got those basics. I talked about the vital statistic records. You also talk about your census, the state census, and also the federal census, but also knowing your local area. What happened in your local area? Was there something that went on that could have caused something? You're in the South. Was there any Civil War battles down there or anything that happened? And I remember that Natural Bridge was a big component in your area down in Woodville because they were coming to take the Capitol. And I don't know if folks know, but I know the archives, I read about it. That was Blacks soldiers or Blacks that kept them from taking the Capitol of Tallahassee during the Civil War. So that Capitol did not get taken. And that is down, there's a big plaque that's down there at Natural Bridge. So I hope folks that live in the area take the opportunity to go down and read that sign. But they can identify that those were Blacks that kept that Capitol from being taken. So there's more history that could be out there. But you know what? A simple Google search about your area to find out, or even using, like Chat GPT or something. Ask the question, what were events that happened during this time frame that would make us lose, or are there any records that I could tap in to find more resources? And this is where you have that genealogy buddy, because you can throw things back and forth, you know.
So that was my point, but you said some other things that I hadn't thought about, but
Yeah.
connecting with the genealogy buddies, because they have
Yes.
learned a lot of the tricks of the trades and may help navigate some
Mhm.
resources, or think of some places that you can check that it just doesn't come to
And
you.
maybe how did they get through that brick wall? What did they do, or
Exactly.
what strategy, and find out? A lot of times I just look for people that might have wrote about people.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any diaries out there? You got your public libraries, your archives, your
Yes.
historical societies also. Become a member.
Yeah.
The best $15, $20 you spend a year joining a historical society, because most of the time people don't know what's up in there.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be Black Archives or museum in
Mm-hmm.
the bank building across from the courthouse.
Union Bank. Mm-hmm.
Okay, they
Yeah.
got it. What are they still there?
Uh-huh. They're still there.
That's another gold mine. Tap in there and talk to those folks,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because they will also direct you, you know, if you have questions. And it might not just be Florida, because most of our people might not have been born and raised in Florida. It could have been, we heard South Carolina earlier, somebody mentioned,
Right.
you know, and things. In North Carolina was where Renata's great grandfather was at, you know, and things. So yeah, my lines were, I didn't know they were all in Virginia per se, but New England and Virginia. I
Mm-hmm.
found my second great grandmother,
Wow.
and we just knew she was born in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
There's 95 counties.
Mm.
Didn't know which one. So,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
So
DNA.
DNA, yes. Donna said, I've read that sign when living in the area. So I think the Natural Bridge sign is
Yes.
talking about. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm clocking 23 years since I've been there, but DNA is hitting the scene very strong.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I would like to suggest to people, if you're thinking about it, set a goal, but also engage your family in what you're about to do. If you're going to take a DNA test, or have a parents take a DNA test,
Mm-hmm.
there's a test called autosomal. That's what Ancestry and 23andMe have,
Mm-hmm.
which is mama and daddy's side.
Okay.
But then there's family tree DNA. Maybe you only want to know your daddy's line, just the male line, his dad, and so forth. That's family tree DNA. And you would do have the male do a Y test. For your mother's line, you want the MT DNA. And again, that's family tree DNA is the site. So the mother's line would be your mother, her mother, mother, and so forth, and go back.
Okay.
But you want to discuss this and set your goals of why you're doing this test. What are you looking for? You know, is it just for the ethnicities and you're just doing it for the fun of it? You know, but when I say talk to your family, because sometimes things will come back and it's not what you know. So you want to know your family is on board with you venturing out and doing this, because a lot of those elders do know things that we don't know. And they were told not to talk about it, or it just never was discussed. So you want everybody to be on board, because I've seen it be a blessing, especially for adoptees that are looking for biological parents or family. But I've also seen it turn the other way, because things came back and it wasn't what they thought. Dr. Henry Louis Gates with LL Cool J, another example. Never knew that the grandparents were not his grandparents and that his mother was adopted.
Wow.
Never knew.
Wow.
Never knew.
Wow.
And Joe Madison, that was another one that was on Gates's show. And the man that raised him was not his biological father.
Wow.
And so they found him for him in that. So again, things could come back that are different. Maybe my brother's not my brother.
Mm-hmm.
We got the same mother, but we didn't have the same father, and nobody said anything. So
Mm.
it could be a blessing, but it also could
Yeah.
disrupt the family dynamics.
Yeah.
So there's lots of testing going on, but get somebody that knows how to do it. Get involved so you understand what you're looking at and who your matches are. And I'll say this for me, for DNA, for about 3 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
we're not Murphys.
Mm.
Great granddaddy was a white man named Joseph Brymer out of Tennessee. And that DNA zeroed right in there. And we did further testing just to make sure we document it. So here we've lived. I wish my dad was still alive so I could tell him and his siblings and stuff. And so it was like, what, you know, and stuff. We're not Murphys. And we got oral history and Murphy stories and stuff. But my grandfather created all of those.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
he knew. He knew. So anyway, he knew. So anyway, I'd like to invite your listeners that when I talked about the Freedmen's Bureau,
Yes.
I host
the link
Freedmen's Bureau Fridays.
Okay.
Every Friday at 7:00 Eastern Standard Time.
Mm-hmm.
Come on in. Your first hour or so, you learn about the collection, and then we start looking at documents. We don't just look at Virginia. We are looking at any state, anywhere there's records at. And we've been doing this every Friday since February 2020.
Nice.
And we still ain't made a dent with that 3.4 million records in there. So,
right. All right. And then there was one more resource that you gave, the IamMuseum.org.
International African American Museum in Charleston. And what I will say is they have a Center for Family History. And the third Saturday of every month, I host a podcast for them. And they're online, so you could go look at the past ones and so forth. But another resource there as well. And there's some videos and things like that. But there's a whole playlist of the talks that they've done and everything.
So I put the YouTube link in the chat as well.
Thank you.
Yes, to that. So you all can just, get there by just clicking on the link in the comments. Okay. So definitely want you to have access to that. Wow. What a lot of great information.
Find yourself.
Find yourself. If you don't know who you are, find yourself. If you don't know where you came from, or where you come from, find out where you come from. Okay.
Definitely.
Yes. Jen said, IAAM Museum. Yes. Absolutely. Marcus, that's amazing, Dr. Murphy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let me.
I hope to hear from him. Because my heart is like, you only know your grandmother's line. No. You need to know a little bit more.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes, Renata, thank you. Great hour. Thanks, Shelley and Nicole. Our pleasure. So I want to give you an opportunity. I know you gave a few closing remarks, but I want you to give some closing remarks and tell folks how they can connect with you.
They can connect with me on Facebook on Freedmen Bureau Fridays. The link was in the chat. And also my email is running across the screen right now. If you have questions, feel free to ask. Welcome to come back anytime, and opportunities to help folks further in finding who they are, who their ancestors are, and also where their ancestors came from. So appreciate the time, appreciate Nicole's show. I follow it, and also the information that's shared. But it's about finding out who you are and where you come from.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I gotta thank you so much for, again, all of the information that was shared. It was absolutely fantastic. I got a whole page of notes here. Okay. So A whole page of notes, lots of context clues. So
Yes.
get out there and find who you are and where you come from. Please.
Find your roots. My tagline is know your roots. They are long and strong.
Yes, I love that. I love
Yes.
that. All right. And then Marcus is my cheerleader. So, yes, please like and
Yes.
subscribe to Conversations with Nicole. We are here on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, focused primarily on mental health and wellness in Black and Brown communities. But we talked about genealogy today, which is, I feel like that's all of the dimensions of wellness right
It
there.
is all the way in there.
Mhm.
Yes, it is.
So knowing who you are and where you come from, we ask who your people. So you need to know who your people are. All right. So please subscribe. Again, we're here Mondays and Wednesdays at 8:30 for about an hour, just having an engaging conversation. All right. So a few more of you have chimed in. Again, I hope y'all have benefited from this. I really do. Jen, good interview. Mom and Nicole. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Alicia Robinson, thanks for the great information. You are welcome. You are welcome. Thank you again, Jen. And thank y'all for your great engagement today. Thanks for playing along with us with our questions. And let's keep this conversation going, please.
Mhm.
Let's keep this conversation going. Share this link with somebody that you think can benefit from it. Please connect with Dr. Shelley Murphy. Uh, and, if you have some questions or need some, you need to connect with somebody maybe in your area, I'm sure, she probably can plug you in with somebody that's a genealogy guru in wherever you are located. So, again, thank you so much, Shelley. Such
Thank
a
you
pleasure.
for having me.
My
Anytime.
my
Anytime.
my pleasure. All right, good people. We will see y'all next time. Good night.